We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 1000 KKIM. Our next guest, talking about the greatest generation, is my father, George Bullied. He was a Canadian soldier in World War II and also was wounded in Korea. I talked to him a little last night about this show, and still, 65 years later after the war, it brought up memories and visions that still make it hard for him to talk about it even now. And here's a man who's been a counselor, a drug counselor for the last 30 years, and it's still tough for him to talk about. There's still memories there. He went through a concentration camp in Germany after the place was liberated. He watched a North Korean soldier who shot him in the abdomen get blown apart by his comrades in arms, and he experienced the horror of being a sergeant in a unit of stretcher bearers in World War II and also in Korea. So this is part of what this generation experienced. It's tough to fathom for people like you and I. On the phone now from the frigid north in British Columbia, I have my father, a member of that greatest generation, George Bullied. Hey, old man, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
This is a wonderful business to take care of.
And you knew I was going to have to start off by calling you old man. There's not too many people I can say that to, so I've got to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So how are things in the Okanagan Valley up in British Columbia?
Oh, it's great.
Good.
Great.
Good.
I think it's great. I love it here.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. Now, Dad, you're in your I hate to throw this number up on the air, but you're in your slightly mid-80s, a little bit more than that, and you and your much better half, Pat, are still counselors, substance abuse, and really life counselors up in Canada.
Uh-huh. So
you guys are still working, which is fantastic. I mean, my hat's off to you guys.
Well, it's a wonderful world to be in, and it's a wonderful world to be able to share what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Now, you fought in World War II. You fought in the Korean War. I always thought, growing up, you were old enough to fight in the Civil War in the 1860s, but you're not quite that old, right? So you were he that has the mic. I'll pay for this later, right? So you were a Canadian soldier in Holland and Belgium. You were a paratrooper, and that's when you met Mom. Was in Amsterdam during the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a pretty nice doll,
Yeah.
I'm kind of tied up with her.
Yeah. Well, okay, you went through the Depression in World War II, and a lot of people of your generation had a hard time adjusting after the war. And I know you've counseled a lot of veterans and a lot of a lot of people that have gone through the experiences that you've gone through. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how was it? For you, after you'd gone through the Depression, in your case, you had two wars. You had World War II and the Korean War. Was it tough adjusting back to normal life as a member of that greatest generation?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult because you had to make up your mind about how you wanted to live,
mm-hmm.
and that didn't come easy. That came pretty tough,
Uh-huh.
And so once you started to settle down into it, that this was the way of life for you, then you started to get tied into it, and it became a wonderful way of life with wonderful people.
Sure. And I think your generation really and I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think your generation learn more to just suck it up and not really look at the experiences and work through them, but just suck it up and go on. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, I wouldn't quite put it that way. That here it was, and we were there, and it was we were going to make our lives wonderful and make it where where we love being what we were, and once we got settled down into that, and we got settled into here we are learning how to live, because we were really learning how to live all over again.
Right. Yeah, exactly, because you had to, separate yourself from those experiences, otherwise you can't go on.
Yeah.
Those some of those horrible memories and visions that would be sitting in your mind. What was your experience like going through the Depression?
Well,
before the war?
It was interesting because we had to make up our minds in the here and now that our lives were being relived all over again, and that we were starting a new life in a new world, and we got to love it.
Yeah.
We got to think to ourselves, we are really getting the best of this world. Mm-hmm. And I think so.
Yeah, I think you did too. Our guest by phone is one of the members of the greatest generation, my father, George Bullied, Canadian soldier in World War II and in the Korean War. So, Dad, you in your case, you went through some tough times after the Korean War. You ended up on drugs and ended up on the street for a while, and then, what turned your life around?
Well, we had to take a look at where we were at and where we were going, and we had to do that with an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to go for it, and that happened. Mm-hmm. And so we then regenerated ourselves, and I love being who I am. I love the job, the work I do, and I love the rejuvenating of life all over again.
Uh-huh. Well, and like in your situation, you became a drug counselor, basically a life counselor, and you ended up talking to a lot of veterans and a lot of people that had gone through the same experiences, and you could relate to their experiences and help them get to that other side and become working members of that greatest generation.
Yeah. And we started to reformulate our lives into such a way that we could get the very best out of them and put the very best into them. Mm-hmm. And you find that a lot of veterans, a lot of guys and gals who had to rejuvenate their lives had to get a hold of it. And here am I.
Yeah. Here in the States, we had a friend of ours on the show, Jeremy Stott, who last year, who is real involved. He was a Vietnam veteran. I'm not sorry, not Vietnam. He was a Iraqi veteran, and he was a NFL player, and really a nice guy. And he's working on a project now because the suicide rate here for veterans in the United States is extremely high. So here you have these people that have gone through, these experiences in the war. They've come back to the country and they can't adjust to civilian life again, and because of that, they're deciding to take the easy way out and ending it all.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about Twin Valleys.
Well, Twin Valleys was a wonderful experience because we had to take a look at it and say, we now need to reformulate our lives. We're going to have children, and in the reformulating of our lives, we begin to find that it was a wonderful life.
Well, and when you guys did Twin Valleys, I visited you there a few times. That's when you and I basically first met. Yeah. What amazed me is you took people that had drug problems or alcohol problems, and you got them to really, it was almost like a boot camp because they started from square one. They rebuilt their own houses. They rebuilt their own, grew their own food. So you really had them start with the basics and then built up their personalities and their psyches by starting all over again from the bare roots.
Yeah, and that was an amazing kind of an experience to have.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we really did learn a great deal of that from our parents,
mm-hmm.
and that was a great experience for most of us because we had to take a look at our fathers and our mothers and all of the rest of it and say, here, we're going to put this together and we are going to produce for our families and make it what we dream it to be.
You mentioned something about fathers, and that leads me to a question I want to ask you when we come back from the break, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio News Talk 1180.